What is up, everybody, and welcome to another special episode of RobeyTech, where we are continuing our series for AMD, showing you how to install a PC in all different form factors. So we have ATX, Micro ATX, the new Mini ITX, and of course we have eATX, of which you can check out any one of these. Now, these have a tendency to be very long videos, 30 minutes plus around 30 minutes. So feel free to look down below. There's a table of contents that you can just click through and easily move from section to section to section. We also try to make it very easy for you to look at them, repeat, and so on to make sure that the instructions are super clear. We also try very hard to ensure that these are as universal as possible, but of course, being AMD, they are geared specifically towards AMD parts. Anyway, guys, let's go ahead and get started and let's talk through the parts that we chose for this build. If you took everything and you put it inside of Willy Wonka Shrinkovision, then you would end up with a Mini ITX build. Now, let's walk through the parts real quick. Of course, our case is the NR200P from Cooler Master. For our CPU, of course, we're AMD, so we're using the Ryzen 5 5600X. For our motherboard, we're using the ROG Strix B550i. We're using the iQOO H100i Elite Capellix. For our M.2, we're using the WD Black 2 terabyte NVMe SN850. For our RAM, we're using the Vengeance RGB Pro SL. It's Corsair's newest RAM. We're using 32 gigs because Mini ITX only supports 2 DIMMs. And for power, we're using the V850 SFX PSU from Cooler Master. And then finally, the coup de grace, you can't go wrong, the AMD Radeon RX 6700 XT, but the Asus Strix Edition, absolutely gorgeous card, is going to look absolutely phenomenal in our tempered glass, and these are the parts they chose. Anyway, let's go ahead and start talking about what the parts you're gonna need to go ahead and build the build, and you can check that out right now. Let's talk about the tools that we need to build a PC. First and foremost, you need something like a nice big clean area like what I have here. You can use a mod mat like these, which you can pick up on Newegg. If you do it on a kitchen table or just a nice big open area, that's okay. You try and do it not on carpet. Again, it's just to protect from static, ideally like a nice hardwood floor, kitchen floor. If you are gonna do it on carpet, just be extra safe about static discharge. We talk about the tools that you need. There's a couple things. Down here on the left-hand side, we have some screwdriver options. I will tell you, just having a standard screwdriver on hand, some cases require or have like small areas that only a standard screwdriver would fit in, so it's always good to have one of these on hand. We also have options like, for instance, things like WOW sticks, or in this case, iFixit kits that make things a little easier for some of the smaller components. And so depending on how serious you are about building, these are always good options. These right here are zip ties, which I always like to use, and these are really for cable management. You also have the option of what are called Velcro ties, which you have right here. I always have a knife on hand. You don't always have a branded knife like I do, but you know, branded knives are always a good thing. This right here is thermal paste and a thermal paste spreader. The AIO we're going to use comes with thermal paste pre-applied, but should you need to remove it or make a mistake, having some of this on hand is nice. The cool thing about a thermal paste spreader is you get a nice even spread over the entire IHS, which is just better for heat dissipation if you want to do that. This right here is for cutting our zip ties, so having something like this to be able to cut the extra off. You can also use scissors, but a little tool like this, which you can get at like Home Depot or any hardware store, is really good. Finally, we have our isopropyl alcohol and our paper towels. Like I said, if you should make a mistake and you need to reapply thermal paste, you need to remove that thermal paste using your paper towels or your alcohol in order to make that better. So this should be everything you should need if you want to do an ideal kind of build. Again, you really can just get by with a screwdriver and a pair of scissors if you really wanted to. So those are all the tools that you need. Now, guess what? We can get started building the PC. Okay, so the first step is obviously we're gonna go ahead and put together the motherboard. I wanted to go through really quick the components you're going to need when we're talking about the individual motherboard stuff, what's inside here. First and foremost, this does not have an integrated IO shield. This will be the first video that we actually show this off in. Always and forever, you will always need your motherboard manual, especially if you're using something different than what we are using. There are some tweezers, just kidding, these are called zip ties. That's a little inside joke if you're a tech guy. And so always good for cable management. It's nice that they actually include these in there. And then again, there's 2 M.2s on this particular motherboard. They did give you standoff, so if you're installing more than just the one that I am installing, you're gonna need these as well. we're gonna go through a quick tour of this board. Obviously, each one of these boards looks very different. So again, we're just gonna give you guys a quick rundown. So if you're looking for individual parts when we talk about them, you'll know what we're talking about. In the top left is our EPS CPU power connector. This basically powers this whole section right here, which is our CPU, and then our VRM. Not gonna really get too much into that. Just wanna make sure you know what this is. Up here we have 3 fan headers. The light gray one is our CPU one. This is the only one we're gonna have to plug in no matter what, because your BIOS, when you boot the PC, will actually throw an error. So that's that. Over here we have the 2 most important connectors on the planet. These are what is gonna make your PC super fast, and those are your RGB headers. We've got a 5-volt addressable and then a 12-volt non-addressable. For the most part, you don't see this one used a whole lot, but that's where your RGB is if you're plugging that in. Right here, we've got our 2 RAM slots. There's dual channel, so in order to activate dual channel, you do have to have something in each slot in order to activate it. This is your 24-pin ATX power. This is what powers the rest of your motherboard. So that's the main part for your motherboard. This right here is actually your front panel connections. These are going to be different depending on different boards, but this is the front panel in this case. We've got USB-C. We've got USB 3.2. We've got SATA connections. These are for like external hard drives, etc. Here is our GPU, where we're going to basically be putting in our riser cable. We'll show you that a little bit later, but we've only got a single x 16 PCI. And again, this, because it's a B550, both this and the M.2 slot are actually PCIe Gen 4. Underneath this is actually our first M.2 heatsink, which is underneath. This right here is our primary CPU socket, and then on the other side, you'll see we've actually got a second M.2 if you wanted to install a second one there. That is not in all Mini ITX boards, but in some of the more premium ones like this one, it is included. So that is a nice rundown of the board. Hopefully that makes it a little easier for you to find the things, but we wanted to show that off a little bit before we started putting parts together. Okay guys, so now we are pretty much prepared to install all of these components. You'll notice with the Mini ITX, this is gonna go a little bit faster, and since the board's so small, we can just frame it all in, and it's so incredible. So first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take this to 90 degrees, just like that. What you're gonna do is there's a little arrow, and it matches a little arrow on the socket, like so. Just gonna drop it in, wiggle a little bit, and then go ahead and pull it all the way down. And there you go, now your CPU's installed. Yay, you've done good. Okay, next up, let's talk about RAM. First thing you want to do is go ahead and open these up, line up that little slot with the little like divider, pop it in just like this, and then from both sides with equal pressure, pop it down. Oh, such a quality click too. You know you've done well when you get a quality click. Same thing on the other side, pop it in, good quality click, and you're happy because you've had that good quality click. So M.2 time, what we're gonna do is we're gonna use our small screwdriver here in this case. You're gonna remove the 2 screws, one here, and one right here, just like that. Then you pop this off. Now on the other side, super important, make sure that you go ahead and peel this for the thermal pad for the M.2, so you're gonna get that done. And also, in the bottom left, we actually already have a screw here. We need to go ahead and remove that screw before we put in our M.2. So there you go. So that's what your board should look like right now. There's a little slot on the PCB right here. What you're gonna do is just gonna pop it in. You'll know it's in because it's like a diving board. You're gonna take your super tiny screw, pop it all the way in, put that all the way down, just like that. And then what you're gonna do is you're gonna take your heat sink, you're gonna put it over, and you can line it up. So it's pretty straightforward because you can see the other side. And you're gonna add your 2 screws. And there we go. Now our thing is completely installed. Okay, so now that our motherboard is completely ready, let's go ahead and move on to case prep. So this is the Cooler Master NR200P. Couple things. Inside of the case is actually this box. In this box is included 2 fans plus all of the typical contents that you're going to need to go ahead and do your install. The other thing that the NR200P also comes with is it's got a side panel like this, but we're actually going to be using a tempered glass side panel, which comes inside the box, which is included right here. We're gonna go ahead and strip this down. We're gonna be using this one in this case, but the procedure for stripping down is exactly the same. So first thing we're gonna do, something like that. Pops off like that. There we go. We're gonna pull the front off, just like that. And then now, the top just pops off. Just can't be afraid. Okay, so now our case is stripped down to the absolute bare essential. The other thing that we're gonna go ahead and do now, just to be safe, is because we're mounting an AIO, down here at the bottom, we're gonna unscrew that like this. Don't lose the screw. And we're also going to pop off the bottoms. And this is where we're gonna mount our AIO later on. Since we know we're gonna use the tempered glasses, we're gonna remove the side mount for the AIO if we were using the airflow configuration. So taking this all the way off. Pops off, and then this will get put away. It looks nice and simple, but we're gonna be getting a whole lot inside of this case here pretty soon. Okay, so first and foremost, first thing we're gonna install is our IO shield. The Asus RGI is pointing up. You can notice the HDMI and the display port is at the very top. It's gonna pop it in just like this, and then you're gonna push it until you hear loud snaps all the way around. So what we're gonna do, it's tiny, right? So it's very easy, but you're gonna kind of slide this down like so. And just trying not to grip too hard, but then once you have it in, pushing until you'll see these 4 screws are gonna line up. There's only 4 screws to screw in here for the motherboard installation. You're just making sure that your IO is all fully lined up, nothing is popping out. So the screws that you're going to need for this are going to be these size screws. There should be more than enough for the 4 slots that we're going to do, but they are flat with little threads. They're the only ones that are going to fit in the holes that we have here. And the places you're going to put them are there, 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 and there. Okay, one thing we're gonna do a little bit different than what you're used to from some of the other builds is we're actually gonna go ahead and hook up our front panel connectors first. First thing we're gonna take is our USB 3. This color's purple. I know you're used to seeing blue, but it's gonna work the exact same way as what we're about to show you. And we're gonna plug this in right here. And remember that 90-degree angle when you pop it in, guys. That's the thing that's super important. Okay, for front panel connectors, we have a single one here. You're just gonna wanna make sure, in this case, that you've got it lined up. There's only one way to basically put this in where it says power. All of that needs to point towards the ramp. So this is the direction you're going to basically plug this in. And then we're just gonna take it down and just plug it in just like that. You'll see that there's a couple pins to the right here, but it goes against the far left pin here. Okay, so next thing we're gonna plug in is we're gonna plug in our HD audio. Because HD audio is actually underneath a secret hidden plate here, which is unique to this board, what you're gonna do is unscrew this little screw here. You're gonna take off this little plate, and then now you've got your HD audio. Now this is only keyed a certain way. There's only one way to plug this in. You can see there's actually a single pin that is filled. What you're gonna do is you're gonna take that and you're gonna plug it in right here underneath that plate, like so. And then you're gonna take that little plate, you're gonna cover it up like this, and you're gonna re-screw it in. And having a small screwdriver like from like iFixit, like what we're having here, makes stuff like this a little bit easier. And there you go, now you've got your HD audio installed, and now all your front panels are installed, and now what we can do is we can work on our AIO. Now that we've got our AIO, let's go ahead and talk about the parts you're going to need out of the AIO box so you can do this yourself. First and foremost, this is the bottom of our NR200P case, so you can see that I've taken that back and put it over here. You've got our radiator and pump combination right here that's out of the box, the 2 ML120 Pro fans that come with it. We've got our hardware that's for mounting basically everything. We've taken out of here the AMD AM4 bag, because that's what we're going to be attaching the Capellix to. And then finally, we've got our Capellix RGB hub, and we'll have to mount this a little bit differently, so show you where to do that as well. So these are all the parts you're going to need. Now we're going to put this aside and start putting the AIO together. I'm actually going to go ahead and mount the radiator to the bottom first. So there is a magnetic dust filter there. And so you're gonna wanna take your radiator, basically I've got the screw holes basically centered like that. You can stick it on its side once you've kind of got that, it'll hold it okay. And then you're gonna take out your hardware. You're basically gonna do a washer and a flat screw like this. You're gonna need a total of 8 of them. You're gonna make sure your hoses are on the opposite side of this little attachment right here at the back where we're gonna screw it in. Line the ones up in the center first. And these are gonna be the ones that are gonna kind of hold it in place, and the ones that are most likely to slip. So once you've got the first one kind of in, don't go too tight at the beginning. You want it to have like some little shift movement. And select and do your second one. There's an art here. And come and do your second one. And then once you've got those two in, you can tighten them down. Now that radiator won't move, and now feel free to just get your other screws on. Okay, so now that we've got this in, remembering that this is towards the front, we want our fan cables to be coming out of the back. So you're gonna wanna set your fans on like this. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna quickly get these screwed in. And the way to basically screw these in is start in the corners. They're always the easiest to kind of get in, and then that way they're set in their holes. So I don't put them all the way down initially. You just wanna get them in so there's some movement, because sometimes over tightening them can make it hard for the holes to go in. So I leave it a little bit loose and then just do each corner side first. And then same thing with the other ones. And again, remember, we're using the long screws with a washer. Okay, and then what you're gonna save is you're just gonna save 2 of those. The rest of this stuff you can kind of put away. Okay, so now that we have this, what we're going to do is grab our case. You're going to, using the top, you're going to thread this through like so. A little bit of practice there. And then you're going to kind of sit it on top. Should just go right on top, just like that. Don't screw this in yet, because you are going to have to remove it at times to do the cable management a little later on, but we're just getting it in, so it's basically good to go there. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to set it back down on its side, and we're going to go ahead and fully mount our pump. So what we're going to do is remove these like that. Grab your AM4 AMD bag, and what you're going to do is, with the pump basically facing like this, you're going to put these facing up. So you just go facing up or facing down. We'll do it this way, facing down. So this is facing down, and then the same thing on the other side, like so. Okay, and then you're just gonna stick it, like holding it like this. So you have your little grippy and then your little screw top. You're gonna set it on like this. And you're just gonna screw it a little bit in, not all the way, just a little bit. You're gonna rinse and repeat on the other side. And now what we're gonna do is we're gonna mount this bad boy. Okay, now the way the mounting works is there are 2 little lips that exist on the CPU bracket, and these little pieces go over these little lips. So you're gonna see me do that right now. So then again, stretching your finger, use the, go ahead and catch the top one first, like that, and then same thing on the bottom one. And then you can stretch your fingers across, and then it should just, if you have long fingers like I do, or like a good hand sprint, and then just slowly hand tighten it down. And once you can't hand tighten anymore, go and use your screwdriver and finish tightening it up. Now you don't have to go all the way, just enough that now you get like no movement and it's nice, it feels nice and solid. Cool, so now what we're gonna do, guys, is now that we've got that mounted, the last thing we wanna do is we wanna add our hub. And this is the hub that has, like, this is for our fans and RGB for the 2 fans that are down below. So I just used a single one of these. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna attach it right to the front here. Now the way that you might be saying, oh, well, this has got holes. Well, actually the air is gonna come out of the side for the PSU, so these holes aren't necessary, so don't worry, you're not covering any airflow things there, and then that gives us plenty of room, and your GPU will clear. So first thing is go ahead and grab your 2 yellow RGB cables, and you have to start from the top left with 1 and 2. So right up here with 1 and 2. First one goes into 1, and the second one goes into 2. Okay, just like that. So now your fan hubs are connected, your RGB hub is connected. And then the same thing with fans, you're gonna grab these 2. Again, putting everything underneath all the hoses and everything. You're gonna put this one in 1. And then the second one, same way as you've connected fan hubs if you have in the past, in 2. And they're only keyed a single way, so there's only one way because of the way the top works that there is to put them in there. So it looks just like this. So what we're gonna do now is we have 2 cables that need to be connected for our AIO pump. Well, this is the only one we're gonna worry about right now. There's a little gray fan header that's the CPU fan header. You're gonna take this, and even though it's 3-pin, you're just gonna goes in one way, and you're just gonna go and plug that in just like so. And then you're gonna leave this kind of dangling. We're gonna have a lot of like cables dangling right now, but the thing that we're gonna work on is getting our power supply in, and then we'll worry about doing our cable management afterwards. So here, what we're gonna do is turn this over to this side. We're actually going to undo these 2 screws, and then that will loosen what we need for our power supply. What I do is I have a tendency to just sit it like this, and we'll stick it in just like that. And let's grab our PSU. Let's go through the parts that you need for your PSU. First and foremost, we have our very tiny SFX power supply. I mean, it's very tiny. It's so small. It's so cute. We've got a single CPU cable. It's actually labeled CPU on it. We've got our GPU power cable. Because this is Radeon, I don't need to split, so this should be totally fine. At 850, it's a 6700 XT, so we're okay there. This is a SATA power cable, so for our AIO and pump. And then finally, we've got our motherboard power cable, and these are all that. And then finally, the last thing is the screws to install the PSU. So the first thing I'm gonna do is go ahead and connect our cables to our PSU. Now that these are plugged in, they're only going to go into the PSU one way. Most of the time it's labeled, it'll say PSU on it, but for the motherboard one, it's the one that's split that goes into the PSU. For the CPU one, you just look for the part that says CPU PSU. That's the part that goes into the power supply. For the VGA one, it's the side that's not split. And for the SATA one, there's no other way to plug it in. It's actually really easy. So once those are plugged in, let's go ahead and get this mounted into our case. With the fan pointing down, okay? You're just gonna shove all your cables through. I know, you're probably looking at this going, there are so many cables. Yes, there are. And when you're using a small form factor PC, unfortunately, when you're doing a small form factor PC, you're always going to have just a lot of cables, and the whole joy is figuring out where they go afterwards. So, again, just kind of shoving it through, and then you're going to mount it fan down right like this. Now what we do is we now take all of our power cables, kind of shove them down below. Here in the back, you'll actually see here and here are 2 little latches that you have to basically get your little thing through. And that allows it to then hold in, so you can screw in your PSU down. Now the PSU is mounted. Now that we have all that, what we can start doing is routing all of our cables, because yeah, this looks really pretty right now. And now we're gonna start routing all of our cables and getting everything kind of plugged in, etc. So bear with me, I'll show you kind of what that looks like here in a minute, and just kind of getting everything squared away. So. Okay, so I'm at a point now where what we can do is, I'll just tell you a little bit about what I did. For all of the front panel connectors, there is built-in cable management here on the side that you can see that I use. It just took some time to route things. Don't be afraid of like removing bits to help make the cable management. I mean, like sometimes this stuff can take, 15, 20 minutes just to get it to kind of a clean point. So what I did is I went ahead and clumped the 2 cable groups for RGB and fans. I went ahead and clumped this one to the main power cable here. And then what I did is I pushed all these other ones, all these front panels, by using the cable management built in around the PSU shroud to get that hooked up. And now I'm basically at a point where what I'm gonna go ahead and do is hook up all of my other power connections, and then I'll route the rest of those. And then once that's routed, then I can basically finish, get our GPU in and all that sort of stuff. So first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and take my main power cable, which is right here, and I know it's got like a ton of stuff to kind of go around, but we're gonna push that into the top right-hand corner here, and then we're gonna push that in right there. There's a reason that we always do this one near the end, because you wanna make sure all your other cables are plugged in. It's just gonna click in just like that. And then again, you'll notice I'm gonna be able to use this to hide a lot of these other cables, which will help make it look super clean. The other one I need to figure out here is my CPU cable. which isn't the longest. We're gonna run this alongside the PSU, up around, and it'll go up here. And this is gonna kind of hide the top cable, and that's gonna go in the top left-hand corner, just like that. Okay, and then finally, we've got our VGA, which we've saved, and then we've got our cable. This is our power cable. The only thing that we have to plug into this is for our AIO. So I'm gonna go ahead and undo these. And so there's two cables I have to worry about for the AIO. This is only keyed one way. Connection is right here in between the M.2 and the DRAM. Just gonna connect it and just push it in just like that. And there's your USB plugged in. I'm gonna plug this into here just like this. Okay, so there's that. And now what we're gonna do is we're gonna take these and clump them together and store these and everything else down at the bottom. So now we're gonna get into some more cable management as we kind of clean up the rest of the build. Okay, so now you can see that I've got the build organized now. So it's like all in all, a couple things that I did. Number one, I actually ended up taking apart this M.2 heatsink and running the cable for the HD audio underneath just to keep that a little bit cleaner. We're gonna have our riser cable there, but again, everything is about getting as much into this like clump. There's some Velcro cable management down here that will help you basically get everything pressed off of the AIO. I also want to make sure the RAM was as visible as humanly possible. The last little bits that I did for cable management is again, getting this stuff clumped. And again, once I kind of sat it up and pushed as much of this stuff up against the PSU as absolutely possible. You can see that once I got it in, I used a zip tie here to basically control that. And then I used these Velcro ties to get it to stay and push up. So, and then right here, we've got our pump cable, which is kind of our last one of the cables that we have to hook in. Is we're gonna do straight at a 90-degree angle, lining up those white lines like that, and then you just basically push it in like that, and it just snaps in nicely. And then the last thing we gotta do is we'll go ahead and cable manage this little bit. You wanna make sure that's on, and then go ahead and plug in your power cable, because the thing is that your power button is plugged in differently. So you want to make sure your PSU's on, because if not, you have to take your case apart and go from there. So now all of our stuff is basically hooked up. All we need to do now is add the last thing, which is our GPU riser cable and our GPU, and then we can turn this on. Going to, PCB is going to be pointed this way. So again, the slot there, it matches the little slot right here. And then don't be afraid to push until this little lock mechanism clicks right here. Okay, so now for our GPU install, what we're gonna do, because the GPU is essentially the max length that can fit in here, we're gonna wanna go ahead and remove a couple things. We're gonna remove these two top screws near the front. And same thing here. Move these two screws. And then this screw right here, holding the, you don't want to just have that flop and land on your motherboard. Okay, so then you're gonna go, then you have that like that. Now what you're gonna do, I want to go ahead and remove these two bits. Pull your GPU cable to the back. It's okay to bend the case a little bit, but it's just gonna slip in just like that. And then there's these two little notches down here at the end that you're gonna kind of push this into. That'll hold the GPU in like that. So it'll be kind of set in from there, and screw the middle one down. Okay, so once you've got that done, then down here at the bottom, you're gonna wanna grab your bracket, your GPU bracket, and it should be just perfectly lined up. So make sure that this thing, and it should be perfectly lined up. Just gonna push that in. There it goes. It'll just fit just like that. And then holding it up while you screw helps a great deal towards minimal sag. Take your last two power cables, and you're gonna see this from the top here. One of the things I did just to help with anti-sag, as you can see right here at the top, I actually used a zip tie to create an anti-sag, because again, with a heavier cable, there's a nice little basically tie off that you could use here, and then you just basically make one tight. And then now you've got something that you can't see that's actually keeping your GPU nice and even. Let's go ahead and put our bracket back in. So put this back on, and then you can mount our top fans and be turning on. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna make sure that your bracket is in the back, just like this, and that your fan cables are up towards the front, like so. I'm just gonna line them up with their little dots. Same thing with this one. These are pretty easy to install. Then you're gonna do is just once you get them in, just go ahead and push down like that. And then just quickly, just a little bit of twin. It's not gonna twist very far. Just a couple ties and they get locked in. What you're gonna do is you're gonna take your fan, there's a fan splitter. You don't wanna unbunch it too much. All I did was untwisty tie it and go ahead and connect these two together. So grabbing these, connecting them in. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna see this little fan header right here, just like so. Right now what we're gonna do is we've got the top back on, we're gonna go ahead and put the rest of the parts on and making sure that it's just ready to turn on. So we're gonna pop this in now. There we go. Grab the back side panel. There we go. I'm gonna pop this down like this. There we go. Now we can do our peel here. Ready? Oh, quality peel. Gotta be even. That should stay in the video. Okay, let's get that off. Okay, never mind. Peel with it off. Okay, there you go. Peeled it off. There you go. Put in our last two screws. So a screw to hold in the top. A screw to hold in the bottom. And now our case is done. Plug in all of our key stuff. So I plug in network. We're gonna plug in our HDMI because that's what we're gonna need for just to make sure it posts. Then finally, we're gonna plug in power because that's the last bit here. And then, and it is on. All in all, absolutely smashing looking build, small form factor in terms of just being able to put this on your desk and run away with. We got 2 terabytes of storage. You got a 6700 XT in here, more than capable gaming machine that's gonna keep that 5600X nice and cool. Now, would love to know your thoughts on the build. Is there anything that we didn't put in this guide that you think might have been helpful? I know with these guides, it's specifically very hard because there's a lot of cable management and all that sort of stuff. We try to make sure, again, those are gonna be very different for every individual person just because as you route cables and what your threshold is for quality cable management. We hope we were able to show you all of the key components and all the key parts. Would love to know all your thoughts and anything that you think you'd love to have us improve on down in the comments below. So while you're down there, make sure you slap that subscribe button, whip that like button, and ring that notification bell so you get a notification each and every time we go live right here on this channel. Also, make sure you check out our live show every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday starting at 5:30 p.m. Pacific time, both here on YouTube and on Twitch. Anyway, guys, this has been absolutely awesome. We hope you enjoyed this video, and we hope you have a successful build as well. Have a great day, and we will see you on the next video.